Hey guys, this is John. Another update from the St. Louis Norm Congress. Just played round 7. In the last video where I played Tatev Abrahamian, I erroneously said it was round 7. It was actually round 6. But I played round 7 tonight against Akshat Chandra. He's a grandmaster, 18 years old. I don't think I've ever played him OTB. Maybe once, but nothing that I remember. But I've known him for a while, so played in the same tournaments before. So he hasn't been having the best tournament. He's a big time trouble player. He gets into time trouble seemingly every game, so I can identify with him. Although I've been working on my time management, it's actually been better. So I had the black pieces. It was an open Sicilian. He surprised me by playing e4, kind of like in the game against Solakaidu. I was expecting d4. He plays both, and I just had a feeling he was going to go for d4 based on some lines I saw him playing. But he played e4 instead, and I decided to go with the Sicilian this time. No Scandi repeat. At least not yet. So we got into an open Sicilian, classical variation, and he played a critical line in the Richter Rouser, so playing f3 and then looking for an attack later with g4, h4, throwing his pawns at me on the king side. I think my position was acceptable out of the opening, although if I could do it over again, I wouldn't play e5. e5, I remembered some analysis I had on that move, but I don't think it's the best. It does give away the d5 square, so when he pivots back with the knight c3, I constantly have to watch the knight coming into d5. And indeed, that's what happened. His knight jumped in, and I captured it. We got into a situation where you both have two bishops, but my king looked unsecure, far less safe than his king. And especially when I ended up castling kingside, and he already has g4 and h4 coming at me. Fortunately, I'm able to keep the kingside closed, but he's able to shift the play back towards the center, and he just coordinates better than I do. So at that stage, he was really turning the screws. He had me sort of pinned down on the e-file. I had to play this very awkward move, bishop d8, which is not ideal. I would have liked to move my rook away from f8 and drop the bishop back to that square f8 and hopefully later to g7 and get attacking his king. But I had to play this bishop d8 move, and I was essentially dead to rights. I think if he had played a couple accurate moves, he would have put me away. In particular, so he transferred his bishop to c1 and then put it on b2. He's trying to line up a battery against my king, try to land his queen on either d4 or f6. So in order to defend against that, I had to play queen f5 and offer a queen trade. So at that moment, the thing I had going for me is that he was very short of time. He was under 5 minutes. I had about 15, I think. And I gambled on the fact that he probably wouldn't go for queen takes d6 in that position, because I could take on c2. Rook takes c2 looks pretty scary, but if he had replied with queen f6, so queen takes d6, rook takes c2, queen f6, it looks pretty bad for white because there's all these discoveries he has to think about, even rook c1, but none of them work. So he said he was scared of rook c1, but if rook c1 double check, king takes c1, rook c8 check, I think there either bishop c3 or even queen c6 are both good, and he should wind up winning. So, there's a certain gamesmanship or art, if you want to call it that, to playing when your opponent's in time trouble, and finding the moves that pose them the most practical problems. Like, they don't have to be the best move, but if they get your opponent thinking, and you can sense which moves are going to make them uncomfortable and which moves are going to make them think, and burn even more of their dwindling time, then that could have more objective value than actually the best move. So queen f5, in that position, it was probably the best move, but I think after queen takes d6, I was busted. Fortunately for me, though, he thought for a while, played queen takes f5 instead, traded queens. But then, after the queen trade, I got this activity. I was able to put my rook on e8, brought it down to e2, and I took on c2. I had my rooks doubled on the second rank. All of a sudden, I was extremely active. And here's where the most amusing or tragic part of the game, tragic for him especially, happened. Because, so we had this situation where he was doubled on the f-file. I had my rooks doubled on the second rank, and he's defending for now with his bishop on a1. He's doubled on the f-file, trying to win my f7 pawn. And prior to going into that line, I had seen that I could play rook f2 in that position, which is a nice move to break his coordination with the rooks and defend along that file, the f-file. And I was looking at the consequences of the bishop ending. If we swapped both of the rooks, I get my bishop on f2, and I'm going to win his h4 pawn. That looked very nice, if not just winning for me outright. So he played rook takes f7 instead. So after rook f2, he played rook takes f7, and I highly suggest you guys go look at this game if you haven't already while I'm just rambling about it. Because I think that blunder he made, and it was a game-losing blunder, it's a double question mark move, but it's an understandable one at the same time. And amazingly, like, I also thought that move was possible initially when I was calculating it. So a couple moves back when I was looking at this line and he goes rook f1, I thought, he might be able to take on f7 there. And I was thinking, well, I can always play rook takes f7 or rook takes f1 check, trade one pair of rooks, possibly even both pairs of rooks, and I didn't think I should lose that endgame. And indeed, I think it probably is a drawn bishop endgame if we trade both pairs of rooks. However, something about the position just looked weird to me after he played rook takes f7. And if you go back and you look at the chess24 moves and the game relay, you'll see that I thought for 2.5 minutes after he played rook takes f7. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, 2 of those minutes were just calculating that bishop endgame. It took me a full 2 minutes to realize, hey, I can actually just play king takes f7 here, and I've won a rook for free. King takes f7 is a legal move, and he just has to resign after that, which he did. So, just an unbelievable blunder to end the game. I say unbelievable, but it is actually believable. I've seen that type of blunder before. He just forgot that my king could take. He assumed that only rook takes f7 was possible, after which I think white is saving the position. So sometimes when there's tension between pieces like that, you may overlook a capture. I think that was a very instructive case of near mutual blindness, because, as I said, I thought that was possible too, and I very nearly played rook takes f7. I'm glad I caught myself. So just wanted to provide some background on what on paper looks like a very confusing and arbitrary blunder, but in fact, from a human point of view, I understand what Akshat was thinking there, and it can happen to anyone. So I win that game, pretty much a gift. I mean, sort of like what happened to me this morning. Akshat just overpressed, he got confused in time pressure. Time management is just so key. The more I play these over-the-board tournaments, the more I realize it. You know, if you get under 5 minutes, it almost doesn't matter sometimes if you're plus 1.5 according to the computer, because you got to make decisions so quick, and one wrong decision and the evaluation could easily switch around. So this time I benefited from that. Very happy to get that win. You know, I was not feeling great after my round this morning, but I still endeavored to play a good game tonight. I'm going to go analyze it, though, because, like I said, I was losing, and I want to know where that happens. So I'm going to go nitpick this classical Sicilian that I just played. So with that win, I get back to +1 for the tournament, performing a little above my rating. Again, I can't make a GM norm, but with 2 rounds remaining, I'm feeling good. I'll have the white pieces tomorrow against Advait Patel. He has GM norm chances. If he scores 2 out of 2 tomorrow, he gets a GM norm. He's won 2 games in a row. So it'll be a fight, I'm sure. In other news in the tournament, it was a very bloody day. There was a lot of changes in the standings at the top. I mentioned after my loss to Tatev and Solokidu were tied for first in the open section, which is remarkable given that they were the 2 lowest rated players in the field by a pretty good margin too. Unfortunately for them, they both lost tonight. Solokidu lost to Vorontsov in a crazy game where it looked like she was even pressing for a little while. And Tatev lost also a very complicated game against Advait Patel. But both those players, too, can make a GM norm if they go 2 out of 2. So all of the GM norm seekers have to go 2 out of 2 tomorrow. You know, that's tough, but it's not unheard of. So I'm going to relax a little bit and prepare for Advait Patel. And I'll update you guys again tomorrow. Just a reminder, there's only 1 round tomorrow. It's in the morning at 11 o'clock a.m. U.S. Central Time. So I'll post my video update in the afternoon, I'm sure. And then the schedule, we have a little break. And then the final round is Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. to round out the tournament. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys had a good weekend and everything. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.